America, land of the free, home of the brave. At least, that's what the lyrics to our national anthem tell us. Of course, the free and brave men those lyrics are describing have been dead for the better part of 2 centuries. Don't you think it's only fair that their glory dies with them? We don't hold children accountable for the crimes of their parents, so why should we glorify children based on the accomplishments of their parents? Just because we are descended from men who were supposed to be great doesn't mean that we are great in and of ourselves. And we have to question the greatness of those men to begin with. The men described in the Star-Spangled Banner, our national anthem, were fighting in defense of Fort McHenry. Now, we didn't fight for Fort McHenry. I didn't, and you didn't. Yet all of us are encouraged to take some pride in the accomplishment of those who did. Also, how can they claim any greatness in the first place? Now, there's no doubt that these men probably fought a valiant battle, but is that alone enough to take pride in? Don't men of all nationalities fight in the wars of their given countries? You can find accounts of Nazi soldiers who courageously and valiantly repelled American forces during World War II. Just because a soldier fought valiantly for his culture does not vindicate the culture itself. For that very same reason, America is not good just because it fought an evil enemy in World War II. Remember, just because we fought the Nazis and the Nazis were evil doesn't mean we were good. Soviet Russia also was at war with Nazi Germany, and certainly no one would argue that that fact alone vindicates Soviet Russia. In fact, Stalin was probably responsible for more deaths than Hitler, but that doesn't mean that Hitler is a good person because he fought against Stalin, and it doesn't mean that Stalin is a good person because he fought against Hitler. In other words, people can fight valiantly, even if they're fighting for an evil cause. And it's very possible for evil to fight evil. Now, am I saying that America is evil? No, I'm not. I'm simply saying that whatever goodness America has cannot be inferred by our participation in whatever conflict. Just because our soldiers fought valiantly in some conflict, or we fought an evil enemy, does not make us good. It does not speak to the virtue of our culture. So if we set off to show that America is good, then where can we look for its goodness? By what standard can America be judged? Well, let's go back to the Star-Spangled Banner for a moment. What virtues does it extol? It extols the virtues of bravery and freedom. And those seem like mighty good virtues to me. I would say that if we are not, by and large, a brave and free people, then we cannot make any claim of goodness. Now, to be brave is to exhibit courage, the ability to face danger and difficulty without fear and without hesitation. There are definitely brave men and women in America, but does that make America itself brave? Let me ask you this question. What do brave people do when they are suddenly and deliberately attacked by an outside enemy? My answer is that they face that enemy. No matter how powerful the enemy is, no matter how staggeringly unlikely victory is, they confront that enemy, and they fight as hard as they can, until some resolution can be found. When America was attacked by the Japanese in 1941, we declared war on Japan and the allies of Japan. Now, in contrast to that, around the same time, the Germans were scapegoating the Jews and the Gypsies and a number of other minorities for all of their problems as a nation. Now, it's true that America did go against the Constitution and lock the Japanese up in internment camps, but we did not blame Japanese-American citizens for the actions of the nation of Japan. This was done as a security measure. As misguided as it was, it can be understood as such. We did not make any attempt to massacre the Japanese or to kill them to purify our nation. There was no final solution in that sense. So even though the internment of Japanese Americans was a horrible blemish on the Constitution and everything that America is supposed to be about, it is at least somewhat explainable and somewhat understandable, and its motives do not seem to be that of an evil people. The German internment camps, on the other hand, were death camps. They were created for the purpose of eliminating the Jews and purifying Germany. The response of 1941 Americans to the attack on Pearl Harbor was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a far more sane and rational course of action than that taken by Germany in response to the burning of the Reichstag and the collapse of the German economy following the Treaty of Versailles. Unfortunately, America did engage in a mass murder of its own only 4 years later when President Truman decided to bomb the Empire of Japan with our newest weapon, the atom bomb. America attacked the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and cost over 200,000 civilians their lives by the end of 1945, many of whom died slowly from radiation poisoning. But as horrible as that action was, it is perhaps excusable in the context of the war that was going on around it. America was running low on resources, and a definitive action was needed to end the war quickly, and that did succeed in doing so. I do not agree with President Truman's actions, but I do understand the rationale for them. But you fast forward 60 years, and we see a very different sort of American reaction to an attack from an outside source. I, of course, refer to our reaction to the attacks of September 11th, 2001. You see a very different sort of reaction from America here. Instead of relentlessly pursuing the true culprits behind the attacks, we scapegoated a nation that had nothing to do with it, the nation of Iraq. Much the same way that the German people scapegoated the Jews and the Gypsies and so on and so forth in the 1930s and 1940s. Now, since the beginning of our military campaign in Iraq in 2003, 90 to 100,000 Iraqi civilians have lost their lives due to military action or sectarian violence. Those are the confirmed deaths. The unconfirmed deaths are probably significantly higher. And that doesn't include all of the people who were displaced because they fled the nation fearing for their lives. Now, if Iraq had behaved aggressively towards us, perhaps we could justify that death toll. But since Iraq never behaved aggressively towards us, and in fact was incapable of behaving aggressively towards us, they simply did not have the military infrastructure to attack us. Despite that, we remain entrenched in Iraq to this day, even though you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who thought it was a good idea. This is despite promises on both sides of the aisle to end this conflict quickly. We have been fighting the war in Iraq for significantly longer than we fought World War II. So are we brave? In my opinion, brave people don't need to find scapegoats. They can confront their true enemies, no matter how daunting the task may be. Brave people question authority and fight the battles that need fighting. Brave people don't choose the easy answer provided to them by the person waving the biggest badge. I do not find this country to be a land of the brave. But what about the home of the free? Aren't we at least the home of the free? Well, first of all, we have to define freedom. For freedom to exist, the will of the individual must be sovereign. In other words, an authority figure of some sort cannot come and tell you how to live your life. If the state interferes with your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then you are not free. So let me ask you this. Would you be legally allowed to take LSD if you so desired? I'm not asking you if you want to take LSD. I'm not asking you if you think it would be a good idea for you to take LSD. All I'm asking you is, if you so desired to take LSD, could you do so, legally? The answer is no. And why not? What does LSD affect? It affects your mind. So when the government says that you cannot take LSD, the implication there is that they have control over your mind. They can decide what sort of stuff can go on in here. I challenge you to conceive of a system less free than one that does not allow you sovereignty over your own thoughts and feelings. America is not the home of the free. So I can't say that America is good, but maybe I can't really say that it's evil either. I believe that we still see the virtue of bravery and freedom. If we no longer even perceive those things to be virtuous, then I could dismiss us as evil and irredeemable. But since most people still do see the virtue of freedom and bravery, I would say that we're not evil so much as just kind of pathetic. We're not good, we're not evil, we're just docile. We're just grazing sheep, whiling away the time until those in power need our wool or our meat or our skin. And when I speak of those in power, I'm not talking about some secret conspiracy, some Illuminati hiding in the shadows. I'm talking about the politicians that we elect and the corporations and lobbyists that buy their votes away from us. That's who I'm talking about when I talk about power. Then again, perhaps the citizens of Nazi Germany and Maoist China and Soviet Russia were the same as us, simply doing what the people in charge told them to, stupidly confident that those in power had the best interests of the people at heart. Perhaps the old saying is true, that for evil to triumph, all that is necessary is for good men to do nothing. But I do have one criticism of that statement. If there are men who see evil at work and do nothing, then they are not good. They're just what we call patriotic.